is now adjourned. Moving on to the blue agenda here. Yeah,
I need a second.
I'm going to give you a second. I'm going to say some things that'll give you a second. The blue agenda is the City of Emeryville successor agency to the Emeryville Redevelopment Agency. We've now been joined by Councilmember West, so we're all here. Do you need a little bit more time?
I'm fine.
Okay. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Now is the time for public comments. No comments from the public.
Move the consent calendar.
Okay.
Second.
Anyone opposed?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. Status report on Oversight Board legal expenditures. I actually don't have that in front of me. Do you have anything, Sabrina? 'Cause we just met on the
I apologize.
13th.
I don't have it in front of me.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't have it in front of me either. I'm
Next
sorry.
time.
We did, the Oversight Board approved the refunding of the tax allocation bonds, and we will meet again next month. And with that, meeting is adjourned. We're on to your green
Wait,
agenda.
excuse me.
This is the Emeryville City Council regular meeting. Again, we are all here, and we've already done the Pledge of Allegiance. I do have a couple of items that I want to draw to people's attention. Item number 5.5, that resolution, I believe, had a typo in it, and so that has a small revision. And then I'd like to move up item 8.2. When we get to administrative items, we'll talk about 8.2 first. Okay, we have someone who's got a limit on his
The
time.
typo in the resolution.
5.5?
Powell was misspelled, wasn't it?
Something like that.
Yeah. In the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th.
Oh, yeah, it's to
Bullet.
Liz on the, it's to Liz.
Oh, yeah. So we need to
Right.
correct that, yeah.
We'll make sure that's corrected before you sign it.
Okay, thank you. Any public comments this evening? Sharon?
Hi, Sharon Wilshire. I just wanted to make a few art comments. The call to entry for the 28th Annual Art Exhibition is out, and the deadline for the application is June the 6th, Friday, and applications are online at our website and also here at City Hall and at cafes around town. I also wanted to announce two things that are happening with youth art at Emory Secondary School, and one of them is a student pop-up store. Yes, not a store, student pop-up on Bay Street, and it's an exhibit of student work exploring the history of Emeryville as using the arts as a tool for their thoughts. This was a semester-long project, and so Maurice will see if any of the students that you met with have anything in their artwork that has to do with your history of Emeryville. So it's from 2 to 5 on May the 31st on Bay Street. It's in the space across from the Gap, which is where the art exhibition was last year. So the students will be there, and their work will be there, and I'm sure they're anxious to talk about that. And then on June the 4th, which is a Wednesday, from 5:30 until 7:30 at Cliff Bar will be the Music and Art Emory Secondary School end of the semester open house. So it's wonderful with live music, and the student work will be on display. So that's at Cliff Bar in their gallery, and it's open. All these are open to the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
Hi, Philip Clark. I'm president of Paxio and also chairman of the Economic Development Committee here in Emeryville. Just a couple comments. We have completed a fiber build down 67th Street, an area in Emeryville that had no fiber access, so we're very happy that that has been put in place, and we got quite a few businesses connected last week and more to come. Future street launches we're working on moving forward. On the Economic Development Committee side, our committee has a strong feeling and hope that the council recognizes or thinks about the needs of both staff and budgetary dollars to make sure that the economic development within Emeryville can be a vibrant thing moving forward. So just, I'm encouraged by the commitment of our committee, and want to ask all of you just to make sure, or bring to you the hopes of our committee that as you go through the budgeting process moving forward, please think about what needs to happen to make sure there's dollars and resources available to keep economic development going on in Emeryville. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, good evening, Mayor Asher and council members. Bob Cantor, President and CEO of the Emeryville Chamber of Commerce. And I have to say, I've been attending council meetings for quite some time now, fairly regularly. I have to say, Councilmember West, that is probably the most unique outfit I've seen any council member wear in my 13 years attending council meetings. You look terrific. Yeah, they're even nicer. Yes, you look great. Thank you. Several things quickly. Number one, I had the pleasure of attending last Tuesday the grand opening of the Ambassador Housing project on Adeline. Mayor Asher was there, and I got some nice photos of you, Mayor, and they'll be on our chamber Facebook page shortly. I suspect maybe somebody else was going to mention that. Charlie was there as well. Lovely event. Our famous chamber giant scissors and ribbon were there as well. It went beautifully, and it's a gorgeous complex. I also wanted to remind everybody to, again, about our Chamber Business Expo. It's this Thursday evening, May 22nd, 4:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the Doubletree Hotel on the Berkeley Marina. Again, it's free. It's open to the public. We have 16 exhibitors just who've registered through the Emeryville Chamber of Commerce, and the Berkeley Chamber of Commerce probably has at least 25 exhibitors. So it's about 40-some exhibitors total. It's free. Please come. We were, again, pleased, and the City of Emeryville has an exhibitor booth that we were under the jurisdiction of the Community Services Department. We were very pleased to offer the city that at no charge, and we're delighted you're going to be here this year, Cindy and Kevin as well. Finally, I just also want to follow up on what Phil Clark just mentioned. I'm a member of the committee as well, and I think sometimes, to be totally frank, some of us might take our business community for granted, which we should not. And lately, there's been a lot in the economic development literature out there that you may have seen. Southern California is going through some tremendous contractions, most notably the large Toyota facility has announced it's leaving. That's 3,000 well-paid jobs moving to Texas. There have been others. That one hit the news. Occidental Petroleum is moving its headquarters out, and others. And just as a reminder that there's no such thing as maximizing out on your economic prosperity and success. As good as the city has been, you have to keep moving forward. There's no such thing as saying we've hit a level. You always need to watch and appreciate your business community, which contributes, let's call it, somewhere between 70% or more of our general fund revenue. So I want to thank Phil for bringing that up, and look forward to working with you on that topic as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Anybody else this evening?
So the city of Emeryville is being asked by the school district for some $21 million for the Center of Community Life, for the city's portion of that. And so with that in mind, and as a courtesy to the 5 of you and staff that's here, I'm going to relay something about our partners, our school district partners, that I think it's edifying, and we should know who we're dealing with. The Emory Unified School District listens to serious people. Unserious people, well, they don't listen to them. But serious people, they do listen to. And somebody that the school district thinks is a serious person with serious education policy ideas is one Emeryville resident named John Gooding. I believe you all know him. He is a longtime Emeryville resident, power broker. He is a business consultant and has a lobbying firm. And he was invited to speak at the Emory School Board retreat this last April. And they invited him because Mr. Gooding is a serious person with serious policy prescriptions for the district, and they sought his wisdom. And the wisdom Mr. Gooding imparted to our school district was that the function of education here at Emory and in general is to provide, we need to provide the corporations, the corporate world with workers. That's why we educate our young people, is to provide corporations with workers, presumably to drive down wages. He didn't say that part. That's my take on it. The school board thinks this is very serious. They didn't say whether or not they agree with it, but they think it's a serious idea and it's worthy of consideration. I think it's a crazy idea, frankly. I don't think the function of any school district is to educate children so that they can become good worker bees for the corporate elite. I think why we educate our young people so that they can become good citizens, so that they can think critically, and so that they can learn to love the joy of learning. That's why we educate our young people. And the fact that the school board doesn't think that's a serious idea, but rather a serious idea is to provide the corporate world with compliant workers is really telling of the school district. And I think it says a lot, and it doesn't say very good things about the school district. We need a partner that has a better, more holistic view of education, I think, and that doesn't take people like Mr. Gooding
Thank you, Mr. Donahue.
so seriously.
Time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comments this evening? Okay, we'll move on to the city manager's report.
Good evening. Just one thing to note. Yesterday, the city released its proposed operating budget for the next 2 fiscal years. You can find the link on our homepage. We will be having a budget workshop next Tuesday evening here in the chambers at 6 p.m. Karen? Is that Yes, 6 o'clock, with the final adoption of the budget coming on June 17th.
Okay,
That's it.
Thank you. Moving on to the consent calendar.
Move the consent calendar.
I just have a question,
Okay,
one question on 5.4.
5.4, I wanted to pull that too. Okay, Kurt?
Me too.
Thanks.
I'm sorry, who moved and seconded the consent calendar?
I would second the consent calendar except for 5.4.
Pulling 5.4. Anything else? No? Okay.
5.4 pulled by Councilman
Kurt.
Brinkman.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess, Chief, my only question was, I couldn't tell whether the car that you're getting is going to have the ballistic door panel, because I see in one of the proposals, they say they're deleting that option.
Yeah, they will not have the ballistic door panels.
Okay, so you're aware of that?
Yes.
Okay.
Chief, I had a question. The SUVs, and this is my own kind of person on the street take on it, are not as human scaled as the sedans. And you mentioned in the report that a lot of police departments have found that the sedans don't accommodate your equipment. Is this feedback that people are giving to the automaker, or do we imagine that there's going to be an improved model, maybe not the Crown Vic, but something else?
The Crown Vic doesn't exist anymore. Ford stopped making the Crown Vic 2 years ago. And what they've placed what Ford has entered into the market in their place is the Taurus sedan and the Explorer SUV. Those are the two that have been police pursuit rated. What we have found, we have one Taurus that we bought last year to put into our fleet. What we have found is they're just not big enough interiorly to accommodate all the equipment we put in. And my colleagues in the Bay Area are finding the same thing. And we're being forced to go to the sports utility. Chevrolet has the Impala, which is 1 cubic foot larger interiorly than the the Taurus.
Uh-huh.
So our hands are kind of tied. The other thing is that as the technology grows and the equipment we carry grows, the SUV provides a whole lot more space for us to carry that stuff. When you consider that right in our Crown Vics, the majority of the trunk is taken up with the radio equipment that's in there. We can't even carry our spare tires in there. At least with the rear portion of the Explorers, we have a little bit more room to carry the equipment into the field that we need.
And these are
How long is
V6s too.
the manufacturer's warranty on these cars after we buy them?
12,000 miles. I think it's 3 years or 36,000 miles. I'm sorry.
36,
I'm not sure.
So I know every year when you want to buy vehicles, I always question why the short lifespan, but that's basically so that you get rid of them, you take them out of service when the warranty is up?
We take them, the lifespan for a patrol car is 3 years. And what we recognized in what we've done in the analysis that it was is that given the 24/7 nature that the cars are in service, given the aggressive driving, I guess aggressive is not a good word, but the type of driving that those cars go through over the streets and railroad tracks and curbs and everything else that they do, they start to become more expensive maintenance-wise after 3 years than to continue their use.
And an average patrol car accrues how many miles over the course of a year?
When we're retiring after 3 years, they're about 89 to 90,000 miles.
Okay.
And they are V6s,
They are V6s, yes.
so the gas mileage is quite a bit better.
Yes.
Move approval of the resolution.
Second.
Can I make my comments? My question is, what is the gas mileage on this? I didn't remember seeing that.
The highway rating on the Explorer is 21 miles per gallon.
But mostly we're doing
Mostly
in
city, and I would say we're probably going to average around 14 to 16 miles per gallon with it.
And the additional costs then of fuel isn't obviously, we're not considering that now. And I understand that the costs of fuel have been more perhaps than was budgeted. Is that correct, in the last year? Or we've had to look at
Yes.
at the cost of fuel. How much can we take that into account as we're buying a vehicle if it's going to have that kind of mileage after 3 years? Is that just built into your operating budget to pay for the additional fuel that's needed for a lower performing car?
Actually, the SUV is a higher performing car than the Crown Vic.
Oh, really?
The Crown Vic was a V8 engine, and we probably average between 8 and 12 miles per gallon with those.
Wow. And are there any, I can imagine what your answer might be, but I'll go ahead and ask. Are there any electric or hybrid vehicles that are used by police departments?
Not in a pursuit patrol vehicle, no. We are looking at, for our unmarked fleet, the hybrid Ford Fusion at this point. And then we're looking at hybrids for our parking enforcement vehicles as well.
So maybe we can make up some of that mileage challenge. And then finally, my comment is very much along the lines, actually, of Mayor Asher's, which is that I find that an SUV gives off a certain message to the public, and because our officers are so friendly and outgoing and have service as such a high priority, I'm afraid that the SUV gives a different message than what we would like to present. And how can we mitigate that or find other ways?
Patrols, bring back the bike patrols.
Can you put a smiley face on the front of it, Chief?
I mean, there are some things we can do for the cars, but I think more importantly is the mindset of the officers that are in those cars, and make sure that they get out of the cars and walk the neighborhoods and greet the people, rather than hunker down inside a black and white.
Yeah.
We could look at the color schemes on it, but we did that about 20 years ago, and the black and white seems to be the more visible of all the vehicles that are out there.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of changing what the vehicles look like. I think that's fine. My final comment, and this is triggered again by what Mayor Asher said, is how do we give the input that we need a larger police vehicle that is not an SUV, and how, I don't know, understand the powers that be and how that's decided, but how could we put our 2 cents in there to make sure that that is an option future years?
We put our 2 cents in various ways. One is through the CHP, which is one of the largest purchasers of pursuit vehicles in the country. And they are letting the Ford and Chevy know that the sedans are too small. They need to come up with something better. And the SUVs, we're not real comfortable at this point with that size of vehicle. It's a different dimensions and weight distribution, and although they're pursuit rated, there's a lot of caution in driving them. So the CHP is actually taking the lead on it and working with the manufacturers to try to come up with something that will fit our needs. What we're concerned about is that all of the, not only Ford, but Chevy get out of the market, and we end up with no alternatures for it. So,
yeah, I can understand that would be a concern. Although you'd think someone would step in if there's going to be a guaranteed
government
stream.
contracts out
look
there.
Look at all the right. We have a reserve fund to replace vehicles.
and you would think that, you know, I couldn't give you the number of. I think somebody said, I heard the number of over 17,000 law enforcement agencies, local law enforcement agencies in the country.
Wow.
That there could be a significant number of cars bought on an annual basis, but that didn't keep them in the Crown Vic business. So
Maybe someone should call GM or someone else and let them know there's an opportunity here.
well, I don't know that GM's the best choice right now. We don't want our police cars recalled.
Let's talk to the Koreans, the Japanese. We'll find someone. No. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your thorough answers. And I think since we've expressed some of our concerns, if you have a contact at CHP or if you have some other way of indicating, what the city of Emeryville thinks, that would be very useful.
Certainly. I think all of that we're going through growing pains with these because the community I live in, that you see the SUVs and you have to take a double take that they're out there. So
Yeah.
I think all of us are looking at and saying we need to get back to something more traditional that's something that people recognize and understand. So
Great. Thank you.
Chief.
With that, I'll move that item.
Okay. Anyone opposed? No.
So who seconded it?
I did.
Okay. On to policy items. Item 7.1. Mr. Gina?
Got a quick PowerPoint presentation.
That's a different one.
Do we have a sample animal with us?
No.
You gonna show
Fortunately,
us the
there's no
procedure,
show
too?
and tell tonight. I just have a couple of slides. I'll get through this very quickly. Good evening, Mayor Asher and members of the council. I'm Michael Gina, Assistant City Attorney. For your consideration tonight is an ordinance which amends Chapter 1 of Title 6 of the Municipal Code regarding spay and neuter requirements for impounded animals. This section of the municipal code was last updated in 1971, and since then the relevant provisions in the state code have been amended, and so the purpose of this ordinance is to bring our local municipal code in line with state requirements. The ordinance addresses three issues. One, the holding period for impounded animals. The second, the spay and neuter requirements prior to the return of the animal to its owner. And thirdly, the spay and neuter requirements prior to the adoption of the animal. Regarding the holding period, our municipal code currently provides that an animal would be held for 5 days for licensed animals and 7 days for unlicensed animals. This is inconsistent with the provisions of state code, and so the ordinance would amend the provisions of the municipal code to provide for a holding period of 6 business days, which does not include the day of impoundment. The state law provides that the holding period may be shorter based on the operating hours of the shelter, as short as 4 business days. Secondly, regarding spay and neuter requirements prior to the return of the owner, currently our municipal code does not require that an owner spay or neuter the animal prior to its return. The ordinance would amend the municipal code to require that an owner have the animal spayed or neutered prior to its return. The city may also order that the animal be spayed or neutered without the owner's consent, although that could not happen until after the holding period has run. The owner also has the opportunity to object to the spay and neuter requirements and can request an administrative hearing. The decision of the hearing officer would be final and there's no further administrative review. Note that the spay and neuter requirements would not apply if a vet certifies that the animal should not be spayed or neutered for health reasons or if the animal is permanently infertile. Lastly, regarding spay and neuter requirements for animals prior to adoption, our Muni Code does require that an animal be spayed or neutered prior to adoption. However, there are other food and ag code requirements regarding the imposition of a spay or neuter deposit. Specifically, the ordinance would provide that if a vet certifies that the animal should not be immediately spayed or neutered because of health reasons, then the owner would be required to submit a temporary spay or neuter deposit. The owner would then have up to 14 business days to have the spay or neuter procedure performed, and afterward the deposit would be returned to the owner if they submit proof that the procedure had happened within 30 days. Note that deposit requirement would be waived for animals that are transferred to shelters or humane societies. And that's the conclusion of my report. I'm available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
I did as well. My question is just about the timing, because there's the holding period, and then after the holding period, can you just, besides the spay and neutering, what else happens? Like what? It seemed a little contradictory in terms of the timing.
In terms of, so the animal must be held for the holding period of 6 business days. After the 6 business days has expired, the animal is then available for adoption. Or maybe returned to the owner. Basically, the purpose of the holding period is to give the owner, if there is an owner, up to that time period to claim the animal. If the holding period has expired and no owner has come forward to claim the animal or provided proof that the animal is in fact theirs, the animal is then subject to adoption or transfer to another shelter or agency, or may be destroyed.
Yeah, Michael, I don't have a question, but I would like to make a comment. My understanding is, and I'm so glad to see this ordinance coming forward because, of course, it's way overdue. But we are faced with a problem here because we contract out these services to the city of Piedmont, who then works with the city of Berkeley. And our ordinance didn't jibe with either Piedmont or Berkeley. So this is an effort for us to get in the game here and make this whole process run more smoothly. We do have difficulties with dogs running loose, specifically on the east side. You know, there's a number of times that things happen. Piedmont services seem to do a good job, so I'm very glad this has come forward, and I'd move it to read by title only.
So I have a question. Why does this only deal with cats and dogs?
Because the Food and Agriculture Code, which is the state code that deals with spay and neuter requirements, only speaks to cats and dogs. There are no provisions in state code regarding the spaying and neutering of other animals. And our current municipal code only speaks to, it really only addresses spay-neuter requirements for cats and dogs.
And so what happens around wildlife that live in the urban environment that maybe animal control might be called out to deal with because it's threatening or appears ill or something?
Other animals.
I've known of tangles with raccoons.
Those are not addressed by this ordinance, and I don't have an answer for you, although I can come back and provide you further information on how other animals.
I don't want to hold this up because you know, this is this revision is overdue, but it seems to me that we should be thinking about other kinds of issues that may arise from time to time. And I'm not just talking like about a rabid dog or a pack of dogs or something, but so, you know, we've had Piedmont come in to deal with wildlife.
Yeah, sure. No, and you make a good point. I mean, the point of this ordinance really is to address stray cats and dogs, and it's not intended to address other wildlife. I mean, we can certainly look to Berkeley, which we contract with for animal control. Well, to Piedmont for animal control services, and to Berkeley for holding those animals as to how they handle other animals besides cats and dogs.
Yeah, Mayor Asher, it's my understanding that the fish and game rules apply to the wild animals.
Oh, thank you.
It comes in from the state, but we have a problem with dogs here, and I hope someone will second my motion to read by title only.
I second it, but I just have to make a little editorial here that I would like to see this brought back to deal with other kinds of animals too. And this really happened. It was campaign season. We're in a campaign year. I was walking the halls of Watergate. It was not the ground floor. And there was an animal that didn't belong in there.
The building.
Yes, on the hallway, the Watergate hallway.
Was it a raccoon?
Yes.
Yeah, we have been invaded
guys
by
are wild out
raccoons
there.
and deer.
And a possum.
Turkeys over in the jungle.
Turkeys.
Yeah.
Turkeys.
Okay, that's a motion from Nora to read by title only, a second by Ruth. Anyone opposed to that? No? Okay, let's go ahead and read by title only.
So, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Emeryville amending Section 6-1.301, 6-1.304, and 6-1.305 of Chapter 1 of Title 6 of the Emeryville Municipal Code regarding the holding period and spay and neuter requirements for impounded animals. And any public comment?
If not, I would move approval of the first reading of the ordinance.
Second.
Anyone opposed?
Good job, Michael.
Yeah.
Nope. Okay. All right, we're on to item 8.2 at this time, discussion of the ECCL project.
Mayor Asher and City Council, tonight, in response to some of the questions that came up at our meeting, I think that's 2 meetings ago, about the ECCL project budget, the school district and a representative from Swinnerton, the owner's rep, are here to give us a presentation on the project budget.
Thank you, Mayor Asher, members of the City Council, and city staff. John Sugiyama, interim superintendent till June 30th.
Good to see you again, John.
It's great to be back.
Yeah. Say that now, John.
After a couple of weeks, it feels like I never left, actually. But there's been a lot of great things happening in the city of Emeryville and in the school district as well. So it's great to be updated on those things. Just one quick announcement. You may know that the Board of Trustees last Wednesday at their regular meeting appointed a new superintendent. He will actually be here from the 1st of June, so that there will be a smooth transition as he begins his tenure. His name is Dr. John Rubio. and he is currently Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum in the Live Oak School District, which is in Santa Cruz County, actually right next to Santa Cruz. And we were hoping that he might be able to be here this evening so I could introduce him to you, but he had a prior commitment. So we plan to bring him to your June 3rd City Council meeting so he can be appropriately introduced to the City Council and City staff. So we'll look forward to that. This evening, I'm joined by District staff, Dave Gallagher, which I think all of you know, and Dave will be updating you on aspects of the ECCL project, and he will be joined later in the presentation by John Baker, who represents Swinnerton, which is the construction management firm that the board has entered in contract with. So without any further ado, Dave Gallagher, and he said for me to stall so he could boot up his PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, but so far I need you to stall a little bit longer.
Okay, great.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, you're off the hook. You don't need to stall any longer. Okay, one click and I should be there. Okay, well, thank you so much for allowing me to represent the ECCL project to you this evening, and thank you even more for moving this early in the meeting. It was a big help to me. Thank you. I want to focus on three things in this presentation: schedule, budget, and the project leadership team for the ECCL. The slide in front of you is some pictures of some action that has been taking place over the last couple weeks at the site. And this is evidence that a very important part of the schedule is right on schedule. And this is the long-awaited soils remediation work. You may remember over a period of months under the oversight of the Department of Toxic Substance Control, DTSC, we were required with our consultants to literally test every square foot and depth throughout that site looking for potential contaminants. And at the conclusion of that process, there was a 1,000-page remedial action work plan produced for DTSC's review. In our initial conversations with them about schedule, they had said that there was no way that they could conclude their work on the review and the approval of that work until probably August. And I'm pleased to report we were able to work with them and tighten up that schedule. We did get approval from them on May 8th. We had contractors ready to move, and the week of May 12th, the work began. This basically, that remedial action plan showed that there was 3 large areas that could potentially have contaminants that needed to be removed. This is the first of those 3 areas that has been completely excavated, and actually almost all of the dirt, almost 100% of it, was clean. So far, so good. We're hoping to have good results all the way through, but we are preparing for a significant amount of dirt potentially having to be hauled to the Class 1 disposal sites. But we'll know the answer to all of that and how much of the dirt that we actually have to handle that way in the next several weeks. This will continue probably through the end of May and into early to mid-June it'll be concluded. This is a schedule you've seen in the past. It was in your packet. I don't want to comment on it too much other than the sort of green shaded areas to the left are all of the major milestones that have been completed over the last 4 to 5 months, and the yellow is the work that's in progress. As I just mentioned, jumping way ahead of myself here. Apologize for that. Just mentioned the soils timeline. Of course, we got the approval on the 8th, began the work on the 12th, and hope to be completed within the next several weeks. We had a similar experience with the DSA, the Division of State Architect, in their review of the plans and the issuance of the state building permit to begin construction. Their initial position was that they needed several more months to complete that review. But like the DTSC, we were able to convince them of the importance of this project, and they responded quite cooperatively, and we were able to work with them closely, and we'll be receiving those permits next week.
Good.
Final approvals on the drawings. So. The next line item is the negotiations that are underway now with Turner, the main construction contractor who will be building the project. They've been bidding with their subcontractors for a couple months right now. They've had some challenges with that bidding. They may need more time to make sure that they get the right prices, the right subcontractors on board who can commit to the right schedule. But they are in that process, and we hope to bring that contract along with the joint occupancy agreement to you for your review and hopefully your approval by June 3rd. And this is the joint occupancy agreement that is in good shape thanks to your city attorney and staff has spent many hours along with district's council in getting that agreement where it needs to be for your consideration. And we'll comment a little bit more on Swinnerton when I introduce them, but they are on board, the owner's rep firm. And so all of these pieces have come into play to position the project for success, and success being construction well underway this summer in hopes of finishing the first pieces, the priority pieces, the gym and the pool, and maybe even the high school by June, July of 2015, followed by the balance of the project. So that's the schedule we've been targeting. We've been trying to do all we can with these agencies like DTSC, DSA to move them along, as well as our board on April 30th authorized some pre-order of steel. Because there's such a long lead time long lead time needed to order and fabricate steel that we authorized some early order of that to start that process, so that by the time that Turner has a contract in place, they've already have a jump on the schedule there. So there's some really key approvals, as I mentioned, the JOA, joint occupancy agreement, and the contract, the Turner contract. Both agreements have already been for the first reading on May 14th in front of our board, and they'll go for the final reading and approval on May 28th, followed by City Council on June 3rd. So before I move to the budget portion, are there any discussion that you want to have, any questions you have specifically on the schedule for the project?
I just want to say that's very clear, and I really appreciate you going through this in detail.
Okay, thank you for that. Budget. Here's probably more detail than you've seen on the budget, and I'm pleased to be able to present that to you this evening. We do have a $90 million project, the biggest piece of which is almost $60 million of construction. We've made it clear to Turner that their construction contract will not be a penny over $59.9 million. That's a number they've been well aware of. They're still well aware of, and that's why they're busy working behind the scenes, getting more and more subcontract bids, working harder, taking the time that they need so that they get all the scope of the project in for those dollars and on the schedule that's needed. So that is a challenge, and they're busy working on that, and we're assisting them in any way we can. But that's the biggest piece of the project there. What I want to do here as I run through this is just highlight how these budgets have changed over a 3-month period. The first column you see is January 30th, followed by an April 30th look. So over a 3-month period, you see our 59.9 has not changed, nor will it. But I will like to highlight some of the other changes. As far as the leadership team that I'll comment on a little bit later when I introduce John Baker of Swinnerton, the move to not have an in-house staff manage this project with the departure of Roy Miller and his assistant 6 months ago, and to essentially contract the staff for that through the Swinnerton firm, did a couple things. It saved all of the in-house staffing costs. It also saved a variety of costs that were going out to a variety of specialty consultants that supported the contract. Swinnerton is now in a position to streamline that, and they already have. And just in that streamlining, plus the savings of the in-house staffing cost, we've improved the project budget by almost $400,000.
Excellent.
And so I can go into that more detail with you if you'd like later, but I want to continue to comment on some of the other changes. Some of the costs that have gone up, we have had a $200,000 increase in what we think it's going to take to restore the pool to full working order with all new equipment and repairs in the pool itself. We want to make sure when that pool opens next summer that it's fully functional and there are no problems with it. It's like a new pool, and so we've added some money into the budget for that. We've had a little bit of savings on public agency fees, the $65 million there, thanks to this streamlining that we did with the DTSC and their fees. And credit goes to your own staff here in the city of Emeryville for being less expensive in the fees than originally thought. So we appreciate that, appreciate their efficiency. The costs that have gone up here, the biggest single cost is the allowance that we're holding for the soils mitigation. We're hoping we don't need to use all that, but originally we had, you can see the first line item under environmental mitigation there on soils is $600,000. We were holding as a contingency before. We've upped that to $1 million. We've also upped some of the testing that we have to do with an independent testing firm. Proportionally, we're hoping that we don't need to use that, but we do have enough allowance in there so that if we do hit some surprises, we can continue with the work and get it completed. The last change there is there's the potential if we're unable to successfully get the high school open by the start of the school year, that we'll need a few more months, up to 6 months, potentially additional lease from where the high school students are now in the Oakland Unified School District. So we were holding that in the budget in the event that were to happen. So we have a $90 million project that's balanced with $90 million of funds. The box there is just sort of the summary of the city funds. Up till now, through the MOUs, the city has allocated $2.8 million to the project, along with a $600,000 FEMA grant and the 21.2 that the city would approve upon approval of the JOA that'll be coming before you in June. That equals about $25 million. Matched with the $65 million that the district is contributing to the project through Measure J, through the 4 bond issuance. The bond issuances Series A through D listed there. So we have $90 million of funds, continually balanced with $90 million of expenditures. And as you can see, costs go up and down, and they will continue to do so in individual lines throughout the project. And our job and Swinnerton, as our owner's representative's job, will be to continue to keep the project in balance. So I do want to move to talk about the project leadership team and the Swinnerton team, but before I do that, I'd be happy to field any questions you have on budget.
I have a couple of questions. The first one is your starting point of $59,904,000. Where do you get that number at? If Turner hasn't given you pricing?
Well, there were estimates that occurred throughout the project, through the early stages of the project all the way through. And there was, in a snapshot of time, Roy brought that number as the approximate number that those estimates were pointing to, and established at that time that there would be a 59.9 budget. And as the architect continued to design the detailed construction documents, they needed to keep that number in mind. Turner needed to keep that number in mind, because that is a number that, when plugged in with everything else, balanced well with the $90 million. So that's been a target throughout the project, throughout the latter stage, about the last year of the project.
But you don't have any hard commitment from Turner to hit that number yet?
Well, other than that, that's all they're going to get. They understand that we've forced that commitment on them. I think the challenge is for them to make sure that they get all the scope that's needed for that number.
Okay. Also, can you explain in a little bit of detail what an OSIP insurance policy buys us on this project?
Well, this traditionally in the construction field, as you well know, the contractors will generally carry their own workers' comp insurance, builder's risk, liability insurance, general liability insurance, those three components. In some cases, it's advantageous for the district as the owner through a joint powers agreement to take on that insurance burden if they can get it for a better cost by bundling it. And that's being looked at, but there are two options that are being looked at, and one would be the traditional manner where Turner carries the insurance. The other would be the district carrying the insurance, and obviously we're just looking for best value, and that's yet to be determined which is the best way to go.
Okay, how about, do you have any contingency in this budget for any surprises?
Yes, did I skip right over that? There's project contingency. This is sorted by highest to lowest dollar. The project contingency is about the third line down. 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth shaded line down.
Okay.
$2 million. We've upped that to $2.2 million to cover the additional pool costs. So that leaves 1.8 of uncommitted contingency.
That seems really tight.
Beyond the pool. It is.
Well, I guess my concern is that I've yet to have a meeting where Turner's been here. So I meant, going back a number of years ago, Turner was, we were sold that Turner was our partner on this project, that we're going to be working on this project together as a team.
Right.
And I don't see that team member, and I've said that numerous times. I know they haven't got their pricing to you guys yet, but if they're a team player, they should be at some of these meetings, at least sitting in the back of the room saying, we're here. And I heard you made a comment about Roy's number of $59 million. Well, Roy and Turner have been meeting for a long time, so I think Turner has a little bit of that buy-in on that $59 million. Right. So I'm really concerned about the pricing on this project. So until Turner's here with a number, I'm really very cautious on this project. So.
Right.
When will Turner be here with the number?
Well, Turner, we hope to present to you a Turner contract that you can approve on June 3rd with a 59.9 number.
Not to exceed.
Not to exceed. And but we won't be in a position to do that until we can guarantee that pays for everything that's been approved in the project. The project has 5 buildings, and it has a whole list of features that are spelled out in your joint occupancy agreement, and we need to deliver a project that has all of those features. So that's really where the negotiation is. It's not so much over the number; it's over confirming that everything is covered.
Well, I guess my concern is we only build one of these in our lifetime. So I just want to build something we'd be proud in our lifetime that will live up to everybody's expectations and doesn't fall apart in a number of years and has high quality components and product in this project with good tradespeople. So that's my concern, because when numbers start getting tighter, things keep getting thrown out. So I want to make sure that the right things don't get thrown out of this project.
Right, and that's exactly the effort we're going through right now.
Okay.
Any other specific questions about budget?
No, I think my concerns, just to echo Kurt, is if we're still negotiating the scope. I understand that, the bulk of the money is for a school project, but I also don't want to shortchange what we're doing on the city side. And so I just want our staff to keep close attention and close focus on what's being included with the $21 million and what we're building on the city side as we negotiate the scope.
This is an exhibit because the topic that you brought up, Mayor Asher, that you just mentioned is one of the most important things, is knowing exactly what we're getting. Fortunately, there's been a lot of good work on this project long before I came on board to document what the project includes. The graphic at the top is the detailed design that both city and district approved about a year ago. And it shows the 5 buildings, it shows the layout on the site. The list below it is a detailed list of features that goes into those buildings, and this is verbatim out of the joint occupancy agreement. So I can tell you that there's nobody on Turner's side or on the district side that has any plans for negotiating away any of these features. this is the project, and we have to deliver this project. And even Turner is not proposing that any of these things be compromised in any way in order to balance the budget. The types of things that are being looked at or would be looked at in the negotiation are things that do not affect the function or the features. An example would be, do we have a single ply roof or do we have a built-up roof? Things like that there, being in the construction business, that there's a lot of different answers. There's a lot of different ways to get the same result without compromising quality. And those are the opportunities we're looking at. We have a lot of those opportunities on the table, some that Turner has brought to us, some that we've brought to Turner. We're confident that we have enough in there between that and some of the insurance negotiations that we're making. And as great a partner as Turner is, there's some compromises that they need to be able to make on their own fees. So that's another area. And so there are a number of areas. And the biggest area is they need to get better prices from their subcontractors. Because of the rush to the schedule, they went in the market with drawings that were not 100% complete. We have that now. They've been through the DSA. They'll be approved. They can go back out into the market with more complete packages and hopefully get tighter bids in some of those areas. So we have about those 4 areas to work on to pull this together. And if we're not there on June 2nd or June 3rd, we certainly will be in a point that we can commit the $59.9 and no more. And we certainly are at the point we can commit the package that's in front of you here as not being compromised. And we'll still be working out perhaps some of the other details.
Well, I just want to keep going back to that team approach, because that was the whole idea, to get a quality product here with the architect, with the school district, with Turner, everybody together putting this job together and giving us high quality. So that's my expectations.
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher, I have the timeline, but I don't have those numbers in my packet. If you could email.
I will email them, and I actually have hard copies with me now. If
that would be
great. Like them this evening, we can give them to you, and I can email both.
Yeah, both. Thanks.
So if it's okay, I'll move on to the leadership team. I'll introduce Swinnerton to you.
Yeah, just my comment on this list is that although it lists all of the different features, obviously there's a lot of room for change, and you're saying those features are not on the table to be discussed to be changed.
That's correct.
Okay.
And even the things that are changed will change, like whether it's a single ply roof or a built-up roof. Your staff is involved in that level. We meet with your staff weekly, from the city manager to the 3 here, and especially Cindy and Maurice are part of the project team meetings every week. And they get into that level of detail with us.
I have one question just on that. We have a unfortunate history in town where new construction leaks, and it's been really a problem. And we changed the city ordinance so that under new construction now, models have to be built on site and hoses sprayed with hoses and things like that. So what kind of assurances are we having that this is going to be a campus that's watertight?
Well, there's those same kind of tests. There's those same
Are we going to be doing those same tests that we require of other construction?
This project won't follow the city building officials' rules. I mean, this is under the DSA. It's a little bit different.
But we have, performance testing, and we also have a full warranty coverage, and so it's not hard to make a school building not leak. And I've been doing that for years. And sometimes we do have leaks, but we do have the type of inspection, the type of full-time inspection that you have on a school is very different than you have in the city. We actually have an on-site full-time inspector that the state requires us to have who is dedicated full-time to that site. And sometimes at peak periods it's multiple inspectors looking at things like roofs, looking at structural connections on a higher level of detail And that's how schools are able to be successful with things like roof leaks, is that additional level of inspection.
Anyone else? So if we increase our inspection on all other projects in the city, we wouldn't have leaky buildings either?
Well, I don't think anybody could afford to have the
No.
level of inspection that the state requires of the district, so. Sometimes we don't appreciate having to do that much inspection, but it does have the benefit of heading off some of those problems. It's a good point. As far as the leadership and back to the teamwork, we have had transition on this project. Roy and his assistant left 6 months ago, left a big hole in the team. I was thankful that I was able to come on and kind of build on, for a period of time, the good work that they had done for so many years. And now we're at a transition point again. The district and the city got together and they received proposals from 11 firms to take this owner's rep role. And the city and the district interview teams came up unanimous as Swinnerton is the #1 candidate. And they've been on board for a month now. The board awarded their contract last month. And this is how they fit into the picture. The top leadership there obviously is the city council and the district board. But the people who do the work are the city staff on the city side, and the district does not have an in-house project staff, a small district. They have a contracted staff, and that staff is now Swinnerton. Whereas Roy was an individual with an assistant and relying on an array of specialty consultants to help him when needed. And I've been an individual. Swinnerton is a team. They're a firm. They have a depth of resources to draw upon. Month in and month out of the project, they'll have sort of the equivalent of 1 to 2 full-time people. But it'll be actually 4 or 5 people working part-time as a team in their specialty areas because of their depth. And I can let John Baker comment on that a little bit when he comes up. But basically their role is, you can see on this graphic, is they're in the middle of everything. They have direct responsibility for all of the contracts and all of the agencies in the blue and the purple boxes down there that the district would otherwise be directly responsible for. There's 19 service providers and suppliers listed there, from architects to furniture suppliers to inspectors to testing labs. You can read the list there. So there's a lot of contracts there and a lot of resources that are not under Turner and will not be under Turner. They're directly under the district. Swinnerton manages all those on behalf of the district. And we've already seen, to the tune of some $400,000 of savings to the project, what it means when you have a dedicated firm managing those resources. On the agency and utility side, you have all of the utilities, the gas, the electrical, the water, the sewer, the phone system and cable. You have all of these infrastructure that has to be brought in to serve the site. Those are agreements and agencies that are normally coordinated directly by the district if they have a staff. Swinnerton is doing all of this. We'll be doing all this throughout construction on the district's behalf. So in addition to their oversight of Turner, the Turner's a $60 million contract, but remember this is a $90 million project. So that other $30 million is in this blue and this purple box, and it's in the management of all these resources. And that's a big job, and they're up to the task to do it. So this is how we're structured, and I think the man of the hour is John Baker. It's probably time for you to come up, John, and you can bring your packet. This is a hard copy of what I presented tonight. Is it appropriate for us to hand that to you now?
City clerk, please.
City
Yeah.
clerk? Okay, yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So I'm going to step back and let John answer any of your questions specifically about his team and how they're organized, but thank you for the time that you've devoted to this evening.
Thank you for coming. This has been very helpful.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to make my first presentation to council and staff, first of hopefully many successful and positive reports about the project. As Dave mentions, one of the things that we hope to bring to your team is a host of experts in a variety of areas, such as financial controls for public agencies, technology, cost estimating and cost control, move management, managing procurement of furniture, insurance and risk, labor compliance, and also community benefits and community outreach. So we have all the folks who specialize in all those areas, and we're very excited to work not only with the district, who we are technically contracted with, but you'll notice at the top of that, those two green boxes, I truly view our role as representing the city and district team. Both of you are the owners, and we're the owner's representative, and we represent you just as much as we do the school district. And as Dave mentioned, there are a third of the project budget is not under the management of Turner Construction. And there are, I believe there are somewhat 30-odd different agencies and companies that we will be interfacing with. Both those having jurisdiction of the project, such as DSA and the City of Emeryville, and also the school district, but also a host of other vendors who are working on the project and have worked on the project thus far. And that you'll see those dashed red lines. That's our day-to-day, day in, day out, what we will be doing. We also view Turner as a partner. I've heard loud and clear tonight the desire of the city to have them participate with the city at council presentations, and I will do my very best endeavor to include them in that effort. It's something that we commonly do. Our contract was awarded on May 7th. We've been working diligently ever since then. I've been in the district office every day. I've met most of you, most of city staff, and been working with you already. And I'm very, very pleased with the collaborative sort of team that I see on the city side. And I will do my best. One of the things that I endeavor to do the best is build collaboration and consensus with multi-agency teams. A specialty of mine is actually is these multi-agency projects. I've done a large one for the city of Berkeley, and also I'm doing one for Alameda County that right now that they're very complex. And as I told the interview committee, I actually enjoy these complex projects for some reason. Some people think I'm crazy, but I really do enjoy the complexity and also being able to build consensus, which I think is the way to build a transparent and collaborative team. Any questions?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. We have a lot riding on this. It's 25 million, not 21 million. And of course, we're extraordinarily interested in, as Kurt says, a quality project. We know the funding is tight, we know the money's tight, but we're looking for quality. And I hope that theme carries through. And that you understand clearly, we don't want a ramshackle building there. We want a quality building.
Well, I can respond to that because everyone always talks about schedule and budget on these projects, and that seems to be the only thing that's important. But there are three parts of a successful project: quality, budget, and schedule.
You bet.
One of the things we have going for us is that, as mentioned, the Division of State Architect actually has really much more stringent requirements than many city and county agencies do. Like Dave mentioned, full-time inspectors on site, and also the requirements for code compliance are really much greater than many cities do have. And part of that is because schools are seen as being 50, 7,500-year buildings, and so they're more stringent for that reason. And so that alone will help really enforce the quality of the project. And we're very familiar working with the DSA and IORs on site, and having the full-time inspector as well. We'll also have a full-time presence on the site every day, along with the Turner team. Really helps that quality assurance and quality control.
Thank you.
Jennifer?
If I can add to the quality comment, which I agree with, one of the challenges I think that we've had, partly because of the complexity of this project, is communications. And having a presentation like we're having this evening has not been the norm, but I hope that it will be going forward. And that there is clear communications not only to us as decision makers and investors in this project, but also to the public who deserve to know what's going on.
Yeah, and I'd be happy to share. We've done a number of really, I think, really great communication tools we've used. My group's specialty is owner's representation for public agencies. And we've done a number of things for community college districts, cities, counties, and other agencies in terms of being able to communicate openly, clearly, transparently to the public, and providing tools for elected officials and staff in order to communicate that message further. I'd love to the opportunity to share those things with you and some of the tools we can do. Like I mentioned, we have technology folks who are very adept in current technologies and way of communicating things, and I'd love to have the opportunity perhaps to make a presentation what we can do or work with staff to talk about some of the tools we can use to do some of the things that you're talking about.
Great.
I guess I just have one more statement to make. I'm sorry for the statement, but this school was envisioned about 6 years ago, and one of my biggest concerns is I know construction costs keep going up, and general condition costs keep going up. So I meant the longer we wait, and those funds that we thought was enough money were developed many years ago. So that's the compression. That's my sense of urgency, is that the sooner we get started, the sooner we get done, and because I'm really concerned about the amount of contingency you have on this project. I think it's really light. So those are just my side issues.
And I can assure you that those, notwithstanding all the things we talked about, kind of what we live and breathe every day is exactly that kind of stuff, if you will. And I think all of you know that we are now entering an escalating, and more competitive construction market. There's no question. I'll remind this group that we do have a contingency within the Turner contract as well, of nearly, I think it's about the same size as what we have on the city and council side.
Okay.
And so we view that it is. I'll be candid. It's a tight contingency, but it's reasonable for a project of this sort, especially a design assist project where the team's been working together for some time. But we will manage. We'll bring our expertise. I think the best thing that we can do is bring our expertise in knowing cost and schedule control, to be there to monitor Turner and the team, and also be able to very effectively and with a great deal of resources represent the city and council in managing those costs on site. It's what we do day in and day out.
Good luck on this one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment?
Step up, step up.
Yeah, come on.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is André Carpio. I live in Emeryville on Ocean Avenue, and I live in a house that the roof is stainless steel. And I'm looking at the construction here, and I haven't heard a single word about the use of stainless steel. Stainless steel, to give you a little history, this is the virtue of metal alloy of 19th century, and it lasts forever. It does not corrode. The name is stainless steel. And in a plumbing department, for instance, the use of stainless steel is what we use compression fitting. It's not solder, it's not thread, it's nothing like that. It's compression, and this technology that has been experienced by all the lab. There is no single lab that has copper line or galvanized line. Everything is stainless steel, and I would wish that we would initiate the use of stainless steel in the plumbing with the school. It would be a good project. I mean, when we talk about millions of dollars, since the stainless steel is reusable, we do not need to get brand new. We just need to go to the recycling place and get what we need, and it's very cheap at $1.50 a pound. And there is plenty, because labs are being wrecked as record numbers, and there is stainless steel laying all over. So I would really like to see if anything could be done and avoid the copper, because the corrosion, we call about the copper green, we kill the tree with that. And so if we use a stainless steel, we will be sure that we have 100% sanitary. Use the stainless steel 316, which is the hospital grade. I wish we could do that for our kid. Thank you.
Mr. Carpio, anyone else? Public comment?
Okay, I wanted to talk a little bit about two subjects. The work completion schedule and the community benefits agreement. So here we are, we're now almost June 2014. Originally we were told that the entire project, the entire Center Community Life project would be finished by July 2015, ready for move-in for furniture and what have you, and then so kids could move in there for this beginning of the school year in August. So then a couple years ago, the district made a correction. They said that they're not going to make that date for the elementary school and for this city, the city center, the community center part of it. Pardon me. But now tonight, I hear, for the first time I've heard, we have now language that's sort of making contingencies about even the high school being ready by July 2015. I noticed on that one slide that, but the gentleman didn't talk about it, that there's a contingency that to make this date there has to be steel availability and there has to be approvals. He did talk about those things a little bit, but he didn't talk about how that would be contingent on making the date. Now, if we don't make the date, of course, it's really going to impact the kids, and it's also going to wreak havoc on the credibility for this project. And so I'm a little nervous now that there's talk now. There's an asterisk next to the July 2015. That makes me very nervous. So here's what has to be done in a little more than a year. Toxic soil remediation, this is my estimation. Toxic soil remediation, site prep, we have to redo the pool, the gymnasium, and build a high school all in about a year. It doesn't seem like it's going to happen to me. And I'm beginning to think that this talk of steel availability and approvals, these are just like fronts for ass covering, essentially, in case they don't make the date, and then they'll be able to use that as the reason. And it just seems like it's not going to all be done in a year. It just doesn't seem likely to me. I'm in the business, so I know a little bit about it. Now I wanted to talk briefly about the community benefits agreement that this project has. Actually, there is no community benefits agreement for the Center of Community Life. If you go to a dictionary, look up community benefits agreement, it's not what we have here. Community benefits agreement is between the community and the developer. The agency of authority has nothing to do with it. So this document,
Mr. Donahue?
community benefits CBA, is entirely cooked up by the agency, and therefore it's
Time's
not
up.
a community benefits agreement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Public comment? No? Okay, thank you everyone for being here this evening and for the presentation.
See you, John.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, now to item 8.1, discussion of the city charter.
Yes, that is me. So at your last May 6th meeting, the council was presented with a draft of a charter, which was admittedly longer than the charter that the council had approved at its meeting of April 22nd. In fact, it went from 2 pages to 10 pages. And the revised draft was crafted in a manner to reflect the manner in which the city currently operates, by either making specific references to the provisions of the general laws in the state, or mirroring language in the city's municipal code as a means to limit the authority of the council in areas that are deemed municipal affairs. As the council is aware and has heard, the charter is an instrument of limitation on the powers of a city. Once the city of Emeryville becomes a charter, should it be approved by the voters, then the council is free to exercise those powers as it sees fit in the areas of municipal affairs. To the extent the charter does not place limitations on those powers, then the council can legislate by ordinance however it may choose in those areas. And without constraints in the charter, the council has unfettered authority in areas of municipal affairs. In the council's discussions leading up to where we are tonight regarding the charter city process, the council was clear that they wanted the charter to in fact constrain the power of the council in the areas of municipal affairs to those prescribed by the general laws of the state, with the exception of the area of taxation. And the concern that I'm raising is that the short charter of April 22nd may not achieve that desired result, and instead results in a grant to the council of broad authority, which again may not be consistent with the council's direction. As part of the charter process, a measure is presented to the Emeryville voters, and the obligation of a city attorney is to provide an impartial analysis of the measure, which is published as part of the voter pamphlet. And as such, the city attorney has a duty to the voters, which is over and above their duty to the council, to describe the legal effect of the adoption of the charter. Thus, the underlying concern is the reality that the city attorney will be obligated to describe the legal effect of the charter to the voters, which may not be favorable to the council's intended outcome. And so while I appreciate the concern expressed by the council that too long of a charter may scare voters away, I do believe that we can further refine the May 6th draft to achieve the desires of the council of a relatively short charter, but in a way that adequately imposes the constraints on the power of the council in the areas of municipal affairs, with the exception of taxation as originally directed. As I alluded to at our prior meeting, I have been consulting with Manuela Albuquerque, former city attorney of Berkeley. The city of Berkeley was a charter city for over 100 years. As the Berkeley city attorney, Ms. Albuquerque has had numerous opportunities to analyze the legal effect of charter provisions and how they constrain the authority of cities in the areas of municipal affairs. And Ms. Albuquerque is with us this evening, is available to answer any questions you might have. And finally, I would note that in your packet, the council has been provided with several other short charters from other California jurisdictions, which remain in effect as far as we are aware. But again, I think if appropriately directed by the council, I'm confident that we can craft a short charter of our own that serves the needs of the council.
Okay, thank you. Comments, questions to begin?
Mayor Asher,
Yeah.
I have a question for Mr. Biddle. Is there any history of litigation on any of these, and thank you for providing us with these very short, to-the-point charters of various cities. Is there any record of any kind of litigation against these charters?
Well, I didn't provide the charters to you that are in your packet. I believe other staff did. So I can't answer that question. I do know that there was at a previous, I'm not sure if the charter of the city of Vista is in here, but I know that that was subject to litigation. And again, the litigation in the area regarding the city of Vista, and I suspect to the extent there has been litigation in any of these charters, it's really litigation that is taking issue with a specific provision. And in the case of the city of Vista, it was a charter that was enacted with the real intended purpose of being of making sure that the city did not have to pay prevailing wages on a project. And so that charter was passed. It was challenged by various union contracting interest, challenging that provision, and they did not prevail.
But they were challenging one provision.
They're challenging one provision.
So would it be fair to say, and maybe Manuela, you can jump in here, is there any history at all in the state of California where a charter city, which has been chartered, has the charter been overturned?
No, Councilmember Davis, because this tendency of writing these very brief charters is a very new phenomenon, as general law cities were trying to change to charter cities to avoid particular problems. So the City of Vista case that your city attorney alluded to, the issue there was, does the prevailing wage law that was adopted by the legislature apply to a charter city? The Supreme Court did not look at the substance of the charter. It was a charter city rights issue. Municipal affairs prevail under the California Constitution. For charter cities, all cities have home rule under Article 11, Section 7, but charter cities have special greater powers of home rule. So as cities encountered particular issues, particularly prevailing wage, where because of budget constraints, they were going to have to pay much more money for their projects, they said, no, we're not subject to that state law. And that's a case that was litigated, and the California Supreme Court said, yes, under Article 11, Section 5, this is called a municipal affair, which is a special right of charter cities, and the charter cities' right not to pay prevailing wage prevails over the state law. So that's what that case was about, not the content of charters. But what started happening, pretty much all the charters I've ever seen that have been, and I currently represent cities all around the state on either litigation or advice. And in fact, you'll recall I was here giving you some advice on some election matters 3 years ago. Mayor Asher, you were not here yet. I came just before you arrived, but and currently I defend cases against cities on election issues and help advise them on these measures. What you'll see of these charters is pretty much what charters are, if you think of them like this, is they're a constitution of the city. Normally, other cities, general law cities like you are today, the spine of what the city can and can't do is established by a series of very elaborate state laws. So you never have to think about them if you're a general law city. They're just there, and they constrain you, irrespective of whether you're passing any ordinances. So what I understood from, so the charters of most cities, just like Berkeley, Los Angeles, San Diego, Oakland, I represent Downey, Alameda, Stockton, they have that structure in their charters, because the basic law under the California Constitution is either you're a general law city, in which case you're constrained by this mosaic of laws, and it tells you things like how many council members, how are they elected. There are many details that are already in state law. How are elections conducted? How do you nominate people? Initiative and referendum, all these details are in general law. Now, if you're a charter city, where is that law? There's no rule that says if you don't put anything in your charter, you default to the general law. It's like, then there's no rules. That's the concern I had when I looked at your draft charter, where I think there's been this very recent modern tendency to put almost nothing in the charter. Well, the legal effect of putting nothing in the charter is council does whatever it wants. So the charter that you had didn't even say how many council members there are, when are they elected, what are their terms, how are people nominated. So when I saw that, and I actually haven't seen one quite that vague, perhaps except for one city, that doesn't at least adopt by reference the general law. So what I recommended to Mr. Biddle is, what I understand you've asked him and the city attorney's office is, look, we want to operate the way we have operated as a general law city. We want the same number of council members, same terms, same rules. That's what we want. But there's certain areas in which we want to have the powers of charter cities. For example, the powers over municipal taxation, where the legislature can't start coming in and constraining you. You're already constrained by the California Constitution under 218. That will remain the same whether you're a charter city or a general law city. So the kinds of things that need to be in there is, if you want 5 council members, it should say that. If you want 4-year terms, it should say that. If you want them staggered, it should say that. So those are the kinds of details that need to be in there, because I have 2 concerns. One concern is, and let me just switch. You've all heard about all the scandals about the city of Bell. You remember all that, and how they were a charter city and they started paying their council members exorbitant amounts of money, and there was this huge scandal about how much money was being paid of this small city with working class people, and the legislature was very offended and started adopting procedures, the procedures you're following today, with the 2 hearings. All of those were imposed because the legislature was concerned that the voters had no idea what happened with that charter. They had no idea that at the end of the day, going from a general law city to a charter city in Bell meant you could start paying your council members $200,000, $100,000 to show up, maybe once every 2 months, and most of the people in the community paid much less money. So the legislature said, wait a minute, we want a very transparent process, and they imposed this requirement. And if you have a charter with nothing in it, you never have to amend it, because the council can just do anything at once. It does it by ordinance. So that is not what you intend. That's what I know, right? From Mr. Biddle, I know that what you want is what you have now in terms of the structure. So now, where are the rules that say you have to be like that? In your charter. That's where they have to be. So that is the purpose. I just wanted you to understand that is the purpose, is to give you precisely what you're asking for. And I see how it's intimidating. You go from 2 pages or 3 pages to like 12 pages, and you're concerned. I think, Mayor Ash, I heard your comments, but voters are saying, what are you doing? This is some new thing that you're imposing on us. So I think we can achieve that objective, which are much shorter. I can already think, I was telling Mike how we can do that. And we can still make it clear to the voters. For example, I've written FAQs for cities on exactly what's happening. Mr. Biddle has to write a city attorney's analysis, 500 words. I think you can make that clear simply so achieve your objective to keep what you have with certain powers of charter cities in the structure, not have it too long, and be able to clearly say to the voters, look, this is not some new thing. We're just shifting to a charter city with the same structure. That's the bottom line.
I have a comment and a question. So looking, for example, at the charter of the town of Truckee.
What page is that on?
That's on 91 and 92. Okay. And okay, so they drafted this in 94. Looks like it might have gone to the ballot in 95. Specifically on page 92, Article 4, General Laws, the town shall be governed by the general laws of the state of California, except as set forth in this charter and the Constitution of the state of California. The town shall have the power and authority to exercise any and all rights and privileges. This is a 2-page document, and I'm wondering if this is what we're looking for, this paragraph right here.
That's what it's by reference. We're saying we like the way the city operates now with a council manager form of government. We want to continue that, and we want to continue doing the things we're doing, but we want these additional powers.
And you already have the power, without saying anything in your charter, to avail yourself of general law. But your charter will not constrain you to do that. That's the issue. The issue is, with language like this, are you required to follow the general law? No. That's what I'm trying to say.
It says the town shall be governed by the general laws of the state of California, except for the items set forth in the charter.
Right.
Well, but then you have a contradictory paragraph in the next section that says, you can, section 500. It says,
oh, to speak into the mic.
Oh,
Ms.
excuse me.
Albuquerque. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, I think it comes off.
Your Article 4 and Article 5 are contradictory.
Okay, so this is saying that you could go beyond the general law. Can't we have something if you, in Article 5, you do something under interpretation and severability, and you say that the language is intended to be restrictive rather than exclusive
or
and limiting,
yeah.
should be construed to allow the town to exercise its power? I mean, I don't, charter cities do not have to recreate everything out of whole cloth. They don't have to be such a distinct animal. I can't imagine that the law and the way you govern your city can't be derivative of a general law.
It absolutely can. There's no dispute about that. It's a question is how do you get there in the language of your charter, that's all. So, for example, there are various elements that, how many council members? And there can be a variety of different ones. Are you elected at large or by district? That's a permission that's given even to general law cities. So you have to put that in there, which is it. So saying that you can govern under use general laws, that doesn't answer the structure of what you have right now. So you just put that in your charter. That's what you want. 5 council members elected at large with staggered terms, nominated under state law, vacancies determined under state law. We just reference the sections, and then that gives you that plus whatever powers you have as a charter city.
Jennifer?
So right now, how is that determined? Since we are a general law city, where is that laid out, those
in
rules?
the general law, in a
No,
whole.
for Emeryville.
For Emeryville, it's laid out in a whole series of statutes. So how you nominate, for example, you're having elections, how you initiative and referendum.
But
it's only in
wouldn't those statutes still remain?
They don't apply to charter cities.
So I'm asking how Emeryville determines that we have 5 council members at large. Where is that written?
In the general law.
In the state's general law?
Yes.
But if you wanted to have 7 by district?
Well, if you do it by district, then you have to adopt a certain kind of ordinance. But you don't have unlimited discretion to do whatever you want. You can't do 1 council member. You can't do 3 council members. You can't.
So there are different choices. It's like a menu.
It's very limited number.
It's
of
very
choices.
limited. But the fact that Emeryville chose 1 and not a different one, where is that captured?
Well, actually, we learned it.
Oh.
It wasn't actually in your ordinance.
No, I can't.
Like why? Maybe we just suddenly decide to have 7 because that's permissible under general law. How do we know that Emeryville only has 5 right now under general law?
Well, I thought it was in the code that we.
So
but it is.
Sure, it's in the code.
Michael, you weigh in. I think we found out that in fact the method of election is not prescribed by in the municipal code. Michael.
So I mean, I'm asking this specific question as an example, not because
right.
But I just want to understand what is the difference between how we're doing something now under general law and how it could be prescribed under a charter, and why could it not reference, everything that was in place prior to becoming a charter city will remain in place unless changed by a charter amendment.
There has to be
some way to
But would that
otherwise incorporate the current situation and how it's been determined, whether it's by ordinance, if it's code, et cetera. You're saying that the article that they have here that was referenced is not sufficient. It allows a general permission but does not limit.
Correct.
We wouldn't have to have a contradictory section right afterwards, which sounds like they made a mistake in including. But we could say that, it is exclusive or limiting rather than permissive to otherwise basically explain what the council's direction is.
It's not difficult to craft this. I'm just I'm trying to tell you why it needs to be set out, because in the absence of it being described. It can be described with reference to specific sections of the general law. You don't want to be incorporating by reference all aspects of general law, otherwise you will be giving up all the flexibility you do have as a charter city. So you are trying, that's why you're a charter city, is to have
There
more
was just
home rule.
one point that we wanted, I think, to use the charter city status to change, not a number of points.
And to retain prevailing wage, right? I mean, that was something we discussed.
That's changing the state law. That's going to happen anyway.
Okay.
We'll get out in front of it. Yeah.
I understand that your concern is length and confusion for the voters. The purpose is not to change your objective in any manner. The purpose is to get you to the objective in a manner that will actually accomplish that result. By not putting in constraints, it means that any council can change that at any time. Right now, you don't even have a provision on requiring how ordinances are to be adopted. So, for example, you could pass an ordinance unanimously one day. You don't have to post it. You don't have to wait for 30 days. You don't have to circulate it. So we're putting in the basic bones of what's in general law into your charter. Power of initiative and referendum, as provided by the Elections Code. That's what you want. You don't want to change that in any way. You want to make that explicit.
But referencing the general law isn't enough to do that?
Because there are all aspects of general law that you aren't going to want to... just understand the general law is very detailed and elaborate, and you don't know what you are constraining yourself to doing. And every time they change some little procedural requirement, they do something, you would be... It's not a good idea in general to adopt, say, every federal law by reference or every state law. So what you're trying to do is, as I understand it, you're trying to operate with the constitutional structure, I'll call it that, the equivalent constitutional structure, which is not, you don't want to be saying every ordinance is going to be the same as somebody else's ordinances, but you want to make sure that how ordinances are currently adopted, you'll be adopting them the same way. Initiative and referendum, what are the key elements of what you do? You want to make sure the council manager form of government. Now, that is not a technical term, council manager form of government. It is accomplished by putting certain words in that say the council sets the policy and the city manager implements the policy. So you just need to put that in as specified in the charter. So it doesn't have to be really long, but it should have these basic elements in it. It's easy to draft, and so I wanted to tell you two things. One, to accomplish what you need that structure, in my opinion. The other thing, along those lines, in addition to not constraining the council at all, I'm concerned that we've not seen such a challenge anywhere, but I'm concerned that a challenge could be mounted that says, this is not a charter.
Well, but then there would be many cities, 7 of which we have in our packet,
or 9
who would
even here.
be very invested in not having that overturned. I still don't believe that when people write a charter that it has to lay out you are not creating a brand new city. It's not as if your history goes away. It's not as if the ordinances that you have written go away. I think you have to presume, and every one of these charters that I'm looking at presumes a kind of continuity from one government to the next. And what it's laying out are these kind of slight changes and differences. And they're looking at these, I would want to maybe have some more context. Maybe that would be helpful for me. Have they been challenged for any reason? Have they been altered for any reason?
They're not recent. I mean, at least 6 of them are more than 10 years old.
They are not recent.
Yeah, 20.
Are these inadequate? Are you saying these are inadequate?
Well, the one that we were just looking at actually says it's constrained by the general law. The one that you had before, the one that was drafted for you, did not constrain you in that manner.
So if we added that one paragraph, you think it would be sufficient?
That's one, going to constrain you in ways that you possibly don't intend at all, and two, it's going to set up a conflict between that provision and Section 500. It's just, I would just try, what I would ask is that that we not be trying to draft based on somebody else's charter, that we try to draft something for you based upon the basic principle of what you want. And if you don't want to incorporate every single general law in that might be applicable to cities of every procedural nature that constrains you, you shouldn't adopt every general law. Because you don't know, you'll have the seeming benefits of a charter city, and who knows in what manner you will have ended up constraining future city councils and your populace.
But that's what we wanted to do, as I understand it, that we now function under general law, and we would like those same
Perspective
rules.
of how it's changed in the future?
Well, I mean, I guess that's a question because of the home rule and our concerns around the state. But
charters can be amended.
Charters can be amended,
right?
If there's something that's passed, and you're saying if the general law changes, that's the concern, but not under current general law.
For example, you have a lot of the general law requires you to have certain officials in your administrative officials. You must have certain people positions, and you may not want to have those positions in the future. Now, if you don't mandate that by adopting general law, and you simply establish your council and your city manager, then you can adopt it by ordinance. You don't have to amend your charter. So, you know, I've been representing charter cities for a long time, and there's a lot of benefit from being a charter city in terms of home rule. So I recognize you want to be sure that you're subject to prevailing wage. You're not trying to avoid any of that. You want to be subject to the consistency requirement. You can put that in explicitly, and then just put the other bones. You know, just the limited if you want to be subject entirely to the contracts code, despite the fact that in any particular case, it might run you up. It might cause you to not be able to enter into have a certain kind of flexibility on a contract. I'll tell you that I've advised the City of Berkeley, and we have more flexible requirements there. For example, the City of Berkeley was able to enter into adopt an ordinance that where a nonprofit group was helping to build a particular city improvement, it adopted an ordinance that said competitive bidding for such a project was higher than it would be. The threshold to require competitive bidding was higher, and it was designed to enable this non-profit developer, a construction company partnership. Under the Contracts Code, you would not have been able to do that. Subsequently, Senator Hancock had to change the general law to let general law cities do it. So that's why, I wouldn't advise you.
So then we would have been captured by that, right? I mean, it's government and laws are evolving, moving, living things. And I just think that we're asking a threshold question here. Can we get to this threshold of do we want to go through with home rule? Do we want to go through with this very basic, simple template, knowing that we want to preserve the continuity of the general law city? We are not, I don't think, I haven't gotten the sense from our discussions that what we're trying to do is get out from underneath the general law requirements. Not at all, right? We want some flexibility. We understand ourselves as operating for this way for a long time, but things have changed on the state level, and we have to be able to adapt, and that's what we're trying to do. Trying to predict what's going to happen in terms of changing state law for general law cities, we could game that out all day long, and then we're not going to have a charter. So I really think that we look at this, and I see nothing wrong with templates. I look at these 7 documents, and I see that there's something to work from here, and I hope that we do that. These are concise, and I would need a much different kind of framing, context, evidence in order to have something much longer. This is more what I'm looking for. Nora.
If I could comment, we're getting into circular conversations here. I think there's a real disjuncture between what the majority, in fact, all of the members of this council want, and what we're hearing from our attorneys. And I place a high value on the professionalism of our attorneys. But in this instant, you are not listening to what the 5 people on this council are saying. We want a simple 1 or 2 page charter to move forward to the public, let the public decide. But we want it simple enough that it can be on the ballot and that everybody can agree. It may not be perfect, but it's as Jack says, it's a moving, living document. And I'd also like to comment on the theme that I keep hearing from both you, Manuela, and Mr. Biddle, about how if you don't have more teeth, the city council can run riot and be like Bell and get to be corrupt. I take umbrage at that. I think no, this is a small town, and if there is bad things happening or corrupt things happening, the ability to remove council members is relatively easy. It is easy to have a recall in a small town. So I don't buy this issue if you don't put all this verbiage in the charter that all of a sudden these 5 people are going to run riot and get corrupt. I don't buy that, and it's a very offensive suggestion to me. What I'm trying to get at here is, and tell me if I'm wrong, guys, but we want a 2 or 3 page document, and I'd have to say we want it in a timely fashion. We're already 2 weeks behind time in our proposed calendar. Am I speaking correctly, guys?
Let's get it done. Yeah.
This is a difference of opinion between professional attorneys and elected officials, but we trump.
Mayor, Councilmember Davis, please, Mr. Biddle is not responsible for this. I am responsible for this advice. So if anyone is being tone deaf or not listening, that would be me. But your charter didn't actually impose the limits of general law, the one that you had. So if that's what you want, we can certainly do that.
Yeah.
If that's what you want.
I think that's what we
That's what I was trying to tell you is from the beginning, is that it didn't do what you wanted because it actually gave you unfettered discretion as opposed to limit you by general law. But we can do that.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Wait a minute. You
See you in
can
2
do
weeks.
that within 2 or 3 pages.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Enough with the verbiage. You know, going down through the years, charters can add verbiage.
I'm
Let's
hearing
start
you
out
loud
small.
and clear, Councilman.
You got that?
All right.
Did someone else want to comment? I thought I heard a...
No, I said just see her back in 2 weeks.
See you in 2 weeks, okay.
I mean, it's of interest to me that a number of the examples that we were given, they were all short. They were mostly more than 10 years old. They seem to have copied each other because there's a lot of very similar language. And one section, which is the general law powers, seems to be exactly, I think, what we're asking for.
Right.
There is, however, in many of these, a construction and interpretation section that follows that's the exact opposite of what we're asking for.
Right.
So I'm curious if you can construct the one sentence opposite of their construction and interpretation to go with the
what we want.
general law powers. Because I think it could be as simple as this, but just the reverse intention.
So I'm going to repeat what I think you want me to do to make sure I have that, or you want us to do.
Yes.
Have that straight, which is you want to be constrained in all respects by the general law.
We don't see it as a constraint.
Yeah.
We operate well that way.
Yeah,
But by that, this is not like you want to tie yourself in knots. I don't mean it that way.
Yes.
I mean, you are either constrained you're constrained by some law. All cities are. So you want to be constrained by the body of law, that's what we call the general law. But you want something more than that. So that something is taxation.
That's correct.
That's it.
Yeah.
And prevailing,
tax.
well, and
At the present time.
Yeah.
at the present
The
time.
charter will allow us to
Okay.
think of other
So,
things.
so the instead of all municipal affairs which are far beyond taxation, for example, it gives you special plenary powers with respect to your police department. It gives you special plenary powers with respect to employees. You don't want to. You want to be constrained by general law with respect to all issues other than taxation.
That's correct.
Okay. But just so you understand, that's what I told Mr. Biddle, the first version you had, it didn't constrain you at all. That was my worry. If that's what you wanted, it didn't constrain you.
Constrain us.
Okay, constrain us, and in the
We like
simple way
general law.
that we saw others.
Yes, many aspects.
Thank you
of
very
general
much, but it's my fault, not Mr. Biddle's.
He's a big fella, he can take the heat.
He's fine.
I made the mistake of getting my advice, but
He's taken more
Mr.
heat
Biddle's
than-
fine.
thank you very much.
Okay, public comment on this item, please.
Okay, yeah, so I just listened to that whole conversation, and I'm not an attorney, obviously, but here I see in the packet, here's the town of Truckee, 2 pages, their charter. Palm Desert, 2.5 pages. So you got Buena Park, 1 page. Norco, 2 pages. Santa Maria, 2 pages. Lemoore, 1 page, 1.5 pages. City of Marina, like a page. So there's all these cities that have done this, exactly what you're asking, but for some reason we can't, and so it's absurd. And I'm happy that this was resolved here, and but it was kind of I found the talk absurd that we were from the attorneys. I thought it was ridiculous. I mean, if so many other cities can do it, what is it about Emeryville that we can't? That question wasn't answered, but now apparently they got the message, and so that's good. I just wanted to alert everybody here tonight before the meeting. I was at my home, and we received a call from an organization called I think it was EMC. Yeah, EMC. Research,
Yep.
that's right. Yes, research. I asked them, they wanted to ask questions about Emeryville, and I said, who's paying you? And they wouldn't say, but I figured it out. It was the city of Emeryville. Yeah, I figured it out after asking them several questions. They didn't want to ask me any questions. Rather, they only wanted to ask my wife, and it was selected by computer. I said, well, I'd like to answer, and no, you can't answer. Only the person that your wife. So I sat and listened in to the questions, and just everybody here should know this. One of the questions, well, several, but the first reference for the idea of a charter city was made by the telephoner, and my wife is not following this issue at all, and so she heard charter and she thought charter school. So I just sat and passively and listened as she was answering these questions. So she thought charter, when she heard that, she started charter school. She doesn't like the idea of charter schools. So she was saying no to that. So that your research could be skewed, just warning. I'm telling you right now. People are going to hear charter, they're going to think charter schools. Which then brings me to the greater point to support what you 5 of you are saying. This thing has got to be, this plebiscite in November about this has got to be really concise, really clear. And if my own wife can be confused by this charter city concept being charter school, I think there's going to be a lot of that. And the talk from the attorneys to me was making me think that this will never pass by the voters. And even, yeah, I just think it should be extremely clear and concise and
Thank
short.
you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Public comment this evening?
Moving along.
Okay.
9.1.
We are moving along to item 9.1.
I apologize, but I think I have to leave the council meeting, so I hope you'll excuse me for the rest of the evening.
Okay.
I would like to make one comment before I go, if you'll allow it, before we do.
Yes,
9.1.
please.
Okay. I don't usually wear this to my council meetings, but I did just today complete a 4-day climate ride, which is what my jersey says, climate ride. And this was to raise awareness and funds for organizations that are working on climate change issues. And I just want to bring this back to the city of Emeryville because I think it's important for us. We do have a climate action plan that we are implementing, and many other concerns that would come under the umbrella of climate change. I think we are next to the ocean, obviously. We've talked about that as well. But over these 4 days, about 150 of us biked 250 miles each, and raised over $500,000 for organizations. And apparently the donations are still rolling in. So it was an extreme experience for me, not having done something like that before, and pushing myself and putting myself personally and physically in a place to really impress the importance of this on us. And I have to say, as I was biking hour after hour up and down hills, I was thinking about, for example, our bike ped path behind ECCL and why we can't get the infrastructure we need to really encourage a change in behavior in people in town. According to the folks from LA who biked from the Bike Coalition there, they said the key question for people using their bicycles is infrastructure and whether it's in place. And tonight we voted on a conceptual plan moving forward on a great example of new infrastructure in Emeryville to support bike and pedestrian on Christie Avenue. And I just think there are other projects that we have, and the council needs to realize the importance of those and move forward, because we are moving forward in Emeryville in so many ways. We're a great example. I hear over and over again about the Emery Go Round being an example, again, combating climate change. But we shouldn't fall short when we have the opportunity. So with that, I probably won't be wearing my outfit again, but I do need to go home and go to sleep.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Member West.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Evening, Mayor Asher and council members. I'm Catherine Furpa. I'm a housing coordinator here at the City of Emeryville. Before you tonight is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an exclusive right to negotiate agreement with EAH Housing for the redevelopment of the former Golden Gate Lock and Key site and 1025 West MacArthur in the cities of Emeryville and Oakland. On October 15th, 2013, the council selected EAH Housing as the developer and authorized the city manager to negotiate an exclusive right to negotiate agreement with EAH, which is now before you. The ERN sets forth terms defining the mutual obligations between the city and the developer during the 12 months under which a disposition and development agreement will be negotiated. The proposed ERN contains the following items: the scope of the development, duration of the agreement, developer obligations, and the city obligations. And a representative from EAH Housing is here if you have any questions from the developer. That's it.
I have a comment. In the resolution, I would like, which is on page 139, between the whereas on September 4th, 2012, the council approved a request for qualifications, and then the next one where the city council authorized the city manager to negotiate an ERN. I would like to add another whereas that honors the work of the housing committee, because they were instrumental in looking at all of the proposals and coming up with a proposal of which developer they wanted the city to use. And I want to just honor the public input process.
I'd second that. That's a good idea, Ruth.
That is a good idea, Ruth.
This is a wonderful project. The sooner it moves forward, the better.
Yes.
So I would move this item with the addition of another paragraph that recognizes the work of the Housing Committee.
Second.
There's one comment that I want to make that, we're in the middle of a housing crisis in the region. That's to put it mildly, especially affordable housing. One of the things that would help me as we're making policy and as we're looking at the projects that are coming to us is some more context in terms of how many, not only how many units we're getting, but how many, the mix of units that we're adding to the stock we already have available. So what I'm thinking of here is I want to be reminded, where we're at in terms of how many 1-bedrooms we have in this city, in terms of how many 2-bedrooms we have, in terms of how many 3-bedrooms we have, and then to be able to kind of put these developments in context. So it'd just be an additional piece that gives us that as well.
So you want the market rate and the affordable, and then what we're
Yes,
adding? Okay.
yeah, our entire housing stock.
And you want this, quarterly or
Well,
monthly?
just when we're looking at a housing development, that's an important question for me. We talked a little bit about how many 1-bedrooms we have in town, so it's something I just like to keep track of. And the other thing I had a question about, is there a mention of project-based vouchers here? Are those available for this project?
Both the City of Oakland and the Housing Authority of the County of Alameda might have housing vouchers available. Or initially, when we were working with them, it was before the sequestration, where housing authorities lost a great deal of funding during that process. So there will be an application to
Tahaka.
The sort of the way it works is you have to get along the process of funding before you go to the housing authority. So during this ERN process, we will be working through that to see where we'll get with the housing. So we have the opportunity to get project-based from 2 different housing authorities on this project.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Catherine. We had a motion and a second? On this?
Motion.
Yeah, I got a motion and a second.
Anyone opposed?
Nope.
Okay. Communication and reports, department heads.
Quick announcement on the construction on Hollow Street with the water main.
Thank you. It's all done? Blacktop's done?
I just wanted to report that East Bay Mud's at a point now where they're trying to connect services to all the buildings. And that work can't be done during the daytime because then you'd have to not allow people into those buildings. So they're going to be working at night on Hollow Street to make those connections. And it's going to be over the next 2 to 3 weeks. That work will occur sporadically at night.
From where to where on Hollis?
Hollis, north of Powell Street, to the limits of the project.
Okay.
Can you limit the amount of parking spots they take out?
We are working with them as well, trying to coordinate their effort. I was driving by today noticing all the no parking signs out when there wasn't any work activity, and we've been working with both their East Bay Mud representative, the contractor, and their the person that they work, that their liaison with the city officials. So
yeah, I think they're just being very abusive to our tenants in that part of town.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
What's happening with the Shell station? What's going on there?
I've had a number of inquiries about that. That station is being completely rebuilt. It's being basically demolished and reconstructed. This was approved by the Planning Commission last June. I believe the building permit was issued earlier this month. And just parenthetically, let me note that it will probably be one of the most bicycle-friendly gas stations that you've ever seen. The conditions of approval require them to include a lot of Bay Trail amenities, including a plaza at the corner of, or a wider sidewalk that effectively will be a plaza at the corner of Frontage Road and Powell Street that will include a fix-it station and a Bay Trail map and bike racks and benches and so forth. They're also reconstructing the sidewalk on Frontage Road as a as a bicycle path, similar to the one that's in front of the hotel next door. And there's also a condition that requires them to make the restrooms in the convenience store available to Bay Trail users whenever the store is open, so not just to their customers in cars. So hopefully it will be an improvement.
That sounds good, Charlie.
Yeah.
Good job.
Other department heads? No? Okay. Council members?
I attend the Alameda County Fire Department
Well,
Fire
we're gonna-
Commission meeting.
Okay, we're going to do 10.2.1
I'm
first.
sorry.
That's okay, Kurt. Discussion of city manager performance review process.
Just doing a hell of a good job.
There you have it. All done. We can move on and strike that. Okay. So what do we want to do? Do we want an outside contractor? Do we want to develop another evaluation tool? Do we want to go forward with what we've done before?
I have to say, I for one don't want an outside contractor. The
Okay.
people elected us to hire a city manager and to direct the city manager, and I think everybody that sits on this dais has the ability to do that and to do it well.
Okay.
And I think the process that we use could use a little fine tuning, but I don't think we need an outside consultant to come in.
Okay.
So that's my feeling.
Anyone
on
else
it.
want to weigh in on that?
I agree. I think the simpler the better on this one. I think the process that we did in the past, I think there was, they got a little petty. And I would like to have this more of a planning, going forward type of review and giving some detail as far as what we'd like to see happen in the city, not per se getting down to the minutia of doing how she does her job, but setting goals for her and then checking in on how she performs the goals.
Well, Jack, clearly,
I agree with that, Kurt.
you know,
Yeah, minutia before.
we set out as a council what our expectations are, what we're looking for the year, and the budget is part of that process. Certainly you have an ability quantitatively to say, these things happened, and they were done well, and these things perhaps not so well, and we have a problem here. There's nobody up here that can't make those decisions and put them forward.
Can I suggest maybe that we, in light of what Kurt was saying, get the evaluation that we had last time, and then if we want to add any additional
Oh, sure,
pieces on
sure.
that,
Or
let's go ahead and
rearrange
do that?
We'll use that tool as a
Okay,
great
so we'll use that
basis.
as the template that we're going to start with. Okay, great. Do you have enough direction on that? Yep. Yeah, okay. Now, Kurt, council members reporting
I'm
on
excited
tonight's
to
attendance.
report on this. I attended the Alameda County Fire Commission meeting, and the response from our fire department is very good. They're right at 90% within 5 minute response for the ambulance crews. Their budgets they're a little bit under budget, and it doesn't look like they're going to be asking for any big increases next year in their costing to us. So I think I'm very, very pleased with what I'm seeing from Alameda County Fire Department.
Okay, anyone else?
I just want to comment on activities of the Alameda County Transportation Commission. I represent the city on that body. And there's a big study and effort underfoot around goods movement throughout the county. And there's an ad hoc committee, which I'm sitting on, the first meeting of which is Thursday, to talk about a plan and a strategy about approaching goods movement. And I just want to highlight our particular location is crucial because the port has big plans to move a lot more stuff on what's called the Martinez subdivision, which are the rail lines that go through our town up the whole I-80 corridor. And last I heard, there were 70 trains that were both passenger and freight that come through here in a 24-hour period. I don't recall the breakdown of how many of those were passenger trains and how many were freight, but they're hoping to about triple that number. So we're going to be right in the throes of a lot of expansion. So Anyway, that's why I got on the ad hoc committee here.
And you're going to be working with the quiet zones with the railroad.
Yeah.
And we should call maybe safety zones too, because
Right, there are alternative safety measures
Correct.
for at-grade railroad crossings. And it seems to me that when it's not feasible to do grade separations for safety, that installing quiet zones is the least that they could do as a mitigation measure for the huge increase of rail traffic that's anticipated. But the other thing is, like here in the Park Avenue district, we have no truck parking signs up at different locations. I've seen them on Hollis and San Pablo, and we're not really taking care of the trucking industry very well at the moment. So part of the goods movement is definitely about truck traffic, truck stops, and all the things to help facilitate goods movement.
Okay, on Wednesday, I went to Sacramento with Sabrina and Townsend and Associates. We made a few different visits to Steinberg's office, Lonnie Hancock's, Nancy Skinner's. We also went over to Caltrans. Everyone was in a bit of a frenzy because the May Revise had just come out. We discussed with several people the need for affordable housing and the need for funds to be made available and a predictable revenue stream available. And there was some discussion about cap and trade money, but it also seems like it's something that is a good ways off. I also, earlier last week, went to the Ambassador grand opening. Bob mentioned it, and it's 100% occupied. I think as soon as we build affordable housing units, they'll be 100% occupied. And it's great to see that Emeryville is doing the right thing, and I really hope that the state finds a way to help us do more of this work. After the meeting in Sacramento, I also attended the school board meeting where Dr. John Rubio was appointed, and later that evening the school board also appointed a new interim school board member, Dr. Christian Potts, and hopefully we'll be meeting all of them at the next city schools meeting. And with that, I'd say the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Very good.